is Fearless, Sleepless, Deathless about?
Yeah, so Fearless, Sleepless, Deathless is a collection of lyric essays, each about the hunt for a specific type of mushroom. And that's, sometimes literally the hunt and sometimes figuratively or proverbially the hunt. So, for instance, In Search of Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, which is the zombie ant fungus. So if you're familiar with shows and video game like The Last of Us,
Yes, I was thinking.
the zombification of the world happens because in The Last of Us happens because Ophiocordyceps unilateralis has made the jump from ants to humans, which would never happen. So I have a chapter or an essay in the book called In Search of Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. And in it, I explore that fungus and other insect parasitizing fungi as well. And I also explore the Haitian history of the zombie, which not a lot of people know that the zombie comes from Haiti. It was born, sort of spiritual aspect of it was born in a Haitian context during plantation slavery. And has persisted till now in a very, very changed state, because the original zombies weren't brain eaters, or, they didn't bring on the apocalypse or anything. It was a spiritual idea. So throughout the book, I do things like that, right? It's very much a mix of different modes. I interview people. I talk about the work they're doing within the field of mycology, which is the study of mushrooms. I do some nature writing. There is a little bit of memoir in it, because the publishers wanted to see a little bit more of me, which I was not originally inclined to really, get that deep into my own life, but I'm glad I did. And there's science writing in there. It's very, very much a mix. So yeah, collection of lyric essays, each about the hunt for a specific mushroom.
What specifically inspired you to create this book? Maybe something that, like an instance that made you be like, I need to write this book. Yeah.
What's funny about that is that I am primarily, or was primarily, a fiction writer. I wrote short stories. I had a novel that I'd been shopping around. And I had actually sold a short story to an editor of a literary journal back like over 10 years ago. And so we followed one another on social media after that. And then he became the acquisitions editor at the press that will publish the book. And he actually asked me if I wanted to write it. So the book was a solicitation. I was very excited. He asked and I said yes. I didn't know that I was going to be writing a mushroom book. It wasn't necessarily on my radar. And honestly, I'm not necessarily sure he got the book that he he was necessarily thinking that he would receive, but I think everyone has ended up happy.
What was your process of writing this book? Like, when would you say it changed, like, from fiction to, mushrooms? Very.
Well, okay, so there is a little bit of speculative fiction in the book, but it was never going to be a fiction book. When he solicited it, it was always going to be nonfiction. It was we really I started kind of with a blank slate and kind of got carte blanche, or I was allowed to do what I wanted. And it wasn't until I started writing the first of the essays, which it's not the first to come in the book, but it's the first essay that I actually completed. the zombie ant fungus one, that I was like, oh yeah, all of these should be about hunting for a specific mushroom. I like the idea that, I was taking readers along with me on hunts. Um, but from the beginning, I always sort of wanted there to be discrete chapters or essays, so that I could feel like I was done with the hunt when I was done with that hunt. Um, and so, yeah, the process of writing the book it was strange, it was chaotic, it was obsessive, all-consuming, exhilarating, terrifying. It was really, really difficult. It's probably the hardest project I've ever taken on. Um, most of the writing, I would say, um, well, I won't say most. A lot of the writing, probably more than half of the writing, took place in creative writing, or artist residencies. So I had artist residencies in Vermont, in the Berkshires, of Western Mass, and in Virginia. And I actually finished the book, or was well on my way to finishing the book at that last residency in Virginia. Um, it was very intensive. I would wake up before the sun sometimes, um, and write until I got hungry. Then, would eat, and then would
Right.
go on a walk, and then start writing again until it was time to read myself to sleep. So it was a lot. It was a lot. During some of this, I also had a part-time job, um, and it was a little bit more difficult to get as much done during that time, but um, it was not impossible. I just had to sort of make sure I was dedicating myself.
How did you draw the connection between mycology, race, and society and culture?
Connection is pretty easy because it's kind of, it's almost already there. So fungi are very, very important organisms. Ecologically, they do extremely important work, but they also exist on the margins. So not many people know that upwards of something like 97% of plants, of vascular plants, so trees, our forests, 90 something percent of trees have a fungal partner that is, that they have a mutualism with. So the mycelium, the organism that is fungi, um, have this partnership with trees, some of them, and in exchange for the trees' photosynthetic material, so the food that the trees are making, the fungi get a cut of that, and then they in turn extend the tree's root systems and make it possible for the trees to get, other nutrients from the soil. Without that sort of give and take, the trees that you see around you would not be as robust. They would not be, we wouldn't have the extensive forests that we have, and we wouldn't, and plants would not be as robust as they are. And so we would have a hard time. Who knows how long it would have taken us to evolve if we weren't getting, the oxygen, because plants came up out of the water via those
Yeah.
fungal connections, right? And lichen and things were breaking down rocks to make soil. So it's so important, the work that they do, but they're so understudied and underappreciated. They're treated with derision and disgust. They're thought of as weird and gross and otherworldly. And yet they're doing they make our lives possible. So I know a lot of Black folks who can relate to that way of moving through the world, and also to that kind of treatment, and that, um, you know, sort of wanting to be cast aside by society. So um, the connections are really there and very visible. Um, but moving silently and with humility, but also doing, some important work. It's aspirational for a lot of folks too.
What initially sparked your interest in mushrooms, and what about them is so important to you?
hmm well, they're important for some of the reasons I just said, just supporting our lives on this planet, but also, and obviously they decompose too. Most people know that about them, that without them, we would be up to well above our heads in like plant matter and all that good stuff. But I have always loved delicious food. I'm from Jamaica originally, and grew up in South Florida. When I first moved from Jamaica, I was on a farm, so fresh food has always been important to me. When you can reach out the window of your grandmother's house and pick a mango, and it's the most delicious thing you've ever tasted. Um, that shapes who you are. And so I think I became a little bit alienated from that kind of life when we moved from the farm to the suburbs, and it was all manicured lawns and everything. Not a lot of like, you know, um, growing your own food was happening there. So when I got to college, I like fell in with the hippies and anarchists or whatever, who would go and they would have like herb walks and foraging walks and things like that. So I learned some edible plants, but it wasn't until um, after college when I met a Polish woman who she grew up in Poland and with mushroom hunting as kind of a national pastime. And so when she came to the States, she learned some of the foolproof ones. They call them the foolproof four, the ones that you can be assured won't kill you because they don't look like anything else. So she learned those, and I went to a party at her house one time where she was giving away hen of the woods, which I have an example of right here. Hen of the woods mushrooms
Mm.
are extremely large, as you can see. They get even bigger than this. I once held like 35-pound one. Um, they are one of the most delicious mushrooms. You can prepare these so that they taste just like meat. Um, I have fooled people into thinking they were eating meat. um, and I actually make if I do say so myself, delicious jerked hen of the woods jerky. And that's what this guy is destined to become. But anyway, she was giving away pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of these as a party favor, because that particular year there were a lot of hen of the woods fruiting. It was a good year for them. So she sent people away with their own like Trader Joe's bag um of hen of the woods. And I was just looking at them at that party and just being like, wow, these are really cool and stunning and um delicious. Um I want to know more about these organisms. So I kind of just went off the deep end and went down several rabbit holes. And
There's just, from what it appears, there's just so much to study about them. Like you can eat them. There's just so much to just explore about them.
yes, there's so much to learn, and you can never learn it all. Um, that out of It is believed that there's anywhere from I always forget these numbers, so you should definitely check before you print anything. But there's supposed to be somewhere from 2 million to like 5 million different types of fungi that exist. And Western science has named only about 155,000 of them. So there is a lot. There's a huge gap in what there is versus what we know. So it's also mycology, the study of mushrooms, is an understudied mega science. There's so much to know about them, from plant pathology, so like diseases of plants that might affect our food crops, to biology, because there are antibiotic resistant fungal infections of the lungs that are, you know, gonna be a problem if we don't
Yeah.
figure them out. There's obviously the study of just mushrooms, field identification, and so it's so easy for you to become a citizen science, or a citizen scientist, if you're interested. And I have found myself contributing to the science in ways that I never, thought I would do, that I didn't think were possible, because we need all of the eyes and, thoughtful brains that we can get looking at mushrooms and trying to find them, and trying to find which ones are endangered, for instance, by climate change, all sorts of things. There are all sorts of ways to be involved. So it's inexhaustible.
What would you say your favorite type of mushroom is and why?
So my favorite, it's hard to pick a favorite. It's like picking a favorite child, but I'll do it. So I really love black trumpets. They look exactly like what they sound like. They look like little trumpets, and in French, they actually call them trumpets of death, because they look like your buried
Mhm.
relatives or whatever could be speaking to you through them. But my, when I was y'all's age, I was super goth. And I think it just sort of speaks to my sensibilities, the sort of beautiful stark black with a little bit of gray, sometimes even a little bit of pinkish in the fruit body. And they're delicious. And usually when you see one growing, they're incredibly abundant. Like you see one and then you realize you're surrounded by them. And they dry really well. So you can dry them out and then rehydrate them and have delicious black trumpet pasta in the middle of winter, which is nice for us up here in the north.
How did your concentrations here influence what you do now?
Yes, in all ways. It was so important at Dreyfus that time, because we were really encouraged to take our writing seriously. I was, in communications, obviously, and even though I was focused on the writing while there, and I was just telling Gabby that I was the editor of the literary journal, co-editor. I was editor of Seeds back in the day. Um, I should have tried to see
What year was it? This was 2003, you said?
2003. In 27, I want to say it was 2017, I was published in a literary journal that also had a the literary journal was called Menacing Hedge, which is a funny title. But they also had a offshoot, and it was, if you were a writer when you were younger, like, so they wanted to publish our youthful writing, our teenage writing, and published one, or I republished one from that issue that we put out when I was a senior. But anyway, just had lost in nostalgia for a minute. My time at Dreyfus was very important because it really did have me thinking about um, seriously becoming a writer as a career. And I, in fact, went on to do an undergrad creative writing degree up here in the Boston area. Um, Met some very important mentors. Um, and yeah, just sort of continued with all that I had learned while I was at Dreyfus. And one of the things that was beautiful about the wheel, I don't know if you all still do the thing where you start off when you're first and second years doing all of the art areas within communications.
Yeah, we have that freshman year.
We just did that 1 year, yeah.
Okay. So taking a speech and debate class definitely helped me in the world that I inhabit now because I'm giving speeches. I've done several keynotes at mycological conferences, at this local land conservancy where I'm on the board. I host mushroom walks every other month at the Arnold Arboretum, which is Harvard's tree park here in Boston. And it all requires public speaking. So even though I was shy about it back in the day and not necessarily like the biggest, speech and debater, the skills that I learned have definitely been useful in my current life. And yeah, managing the literary journal. I am right now I'm jurying for Young Arts, which is a lot of the same skills, right? Like reading submissions and rating them. And I do that kind of work a lot, actually. So I sit on many different juries. So all of the skills. Obviously, the writing has come in handy. Yeah, I would not. Oh, even the TV production stuff, because I make content sometimes online, and making content was one of the things that caught the editor's eye later and asked him if I wanted to, and made him ask me if I wanted to write the book. So having an eye-catching video or reel or whatever is definitely useful for all sorts of career modes.
What would you say your fondest memory of Dreyfus is?
Oh, that's hard. That's another hard one. So I met one of my best friends. We're still very good friends to this day at Dreyfus. And yeah, we would just cut up, man. We would when we had a project due, say in TV production, we would take the cameras and we'd be roaming around the campus. This was pre everyone having a phone with, everyone having like the capability of making videos. So a lot of the things that we did, I still have those videos, those VHSs to this day of our little scripted skits, like very short form skits, before that was a big cultural phenomenon of like people having, making skits. I'm trying to think of any specific things. It's been really fun and funny to watch some of my classmates from back in the day become folks out in the world who have, careers that go obviously beyond what they did at Dreyfus. But I remember Eric Andre being on the morning announcements, and I remember Fran Ramsey also being on the morning announcements and being in the talent show and singing and things of that nature. Yeah, the actors who have gone on to be in films like Django Unchained and stuff. So yeah, so formative, so many fond memories. It's hard to pick just one, but I would say like roaming around campus with my friend Christy making videos.
So, do you have any future plans after your book comes out? If so, what are they?
I am already working on a couple of different projects. One long form essay, which will be in a magazine next fall. I'm also working on a new novel. So even though, I started with fiction and then made this foray into nonfiction, I'm going to go back to my roots and see if I can't churn out this novel. I'm pretty excited about it. The main character is already giving me grief for ignoring her when I have to do other work. So it's exciting times.
How do you think writing this book about mushrooms influencing your projects now?
Absolutely. It's changed everything. I mean, the way I work, the way my wiring is set up is that whenever I'm doing a project, it's all about that project. I find it very hard to put it away and, not think about it. So the whole world I see through that lens, and it's really hard to give up the lens that you had for so long. I was working on the book for several years. And so with this new book, for instance, I know that the protagonist is going to be spending a lot of time in the woods because, that's who she is, but also it's a way for me to continue with some of the momentum that looking at the world in the way that I had to for these essays gave me. So it's not just sort of, okay, I'm done with you, moving on to the next thing. It's more of a sort of continuum. Yeah.
What is some advice you have for them in navigating the publishing process?
Yeah. Great question. I wish there had been more of this back in my day because I was not prepared for what the publishing world would be like. I would say first and foremost is to make sure that you are passionate and make sure that you are of the community that would be supporting your work. So what I mean by that is, I think back when I was coming up, there was this idea of the lone writer who, goes off on her own and she is so lonely and she doesn't connect necessarily with others, and writing is such a solitary process. And that's partially true, obviously, unless you're writing collaboratively, you're going to be doing a lot of your work alone. But literary citizenship is so important and is so much where so many of the connections that we need to make it in publishing actually occur. So, for instance, that editor who I sold that short story to in 2014 or whenever it was, we kept in touch. And he reached out many years later with this project because of a connection we already had. So I can imagine him being in a meeting with the people at the press and them saying, we want a book about mushrooms, and him thinking, oh, Maria, whom I, follow on social media, is completely wild about mushrooms. So let's make that happen. Um, I used to work at, and sometimes still do, at the literary nonprofit in this area known as Grub Street. And so many of the connections I'm making now in terms of bringing the book into the world came from my time working at Grub Street. I would say that if you want to publish, you should obviously be familiar with the work of the publication that you're looking to publish with. You should read many titles from them. If you're talking about a book length project, you should read the literary journal. If you're talking about the literary journal, be very familiar with the kinds of work they do. Maybe try to familiarize yourself with the people they publish. So it's kind of all about networking, kind of like a mycelial network, right? It's all about having mutualist relationships and having a give and take and having reciprocity with the people that you make these connections with. So for instance, it wouldn't make that much sense now as I'm going through this process of trying to figure out book tour stuff. It wouldn't really make that much sense for me to go that alone because I'm a debut author, and so I might not have as much name recognition. So if I want people to come to a book event, for instance, that network comes in handy because I can be in conversation with someone who is a writer who has a reputation in the city where I'm going. So calling on those contacts and saying, hey, I reviewed your book last year. Would you mind being in conversation with me at this talk that I'm going to be giving in your town? So I say all that to say it's a long-winded way of saying that the connections are so important in publishing, and just making sure that you live passionately and out loud among the communities where you want to be publishing. It's the best way to get your foot in the door, because then people know who you are and you're a known quantity.
What advice would you give your teenage self?
Oh my goodness. So much. so much. I would tell her to calm down. It's gonna be okay. I was anxious, and I didn't really know myself very well, which is normal, I think, for one's teenage years, to sort of be searching and to not have it all figured out yet. But I think my teenage self could have really bypassed a lot of heartache if she hadn't, if she if she practiced self-acceptance a lot earlier than I ended up doing. So I would say, calm down. Not everything is a crisis. It will be all right. Learn to be in the moment, and burn that bridge when you get to it, or cross it when you get to it, whichever one makes more sense.
Your day to day as like a writer.
Day to day is hectic. At this moment, you happen to catch me. I mean, it's by design. Obviously, the book is coming out, but yeah, I wake up pretty much from the moment I wake up. I'm answering emails, scheduling interviews, making sure that I'm on top of my deadlines for that day. I have to schedule, have to schedule time to get out and get into the woods and actually relax and, you know, exercise. That's also important. Because without it, I start to go a little cuckoo and nobody likes that. But yeah, so right now, for instance, if I look at my calendar for the week, there are a couple of different interviews, yours included, that will be coming out at around the time of the book release. I have to confirm a couple of author events and make sure that all of them are still a go. I'm working on an article that will also be coming out sometime in the fall, and that deadline is fast approaching. Um, and if I have any time at all tonight, I will allow this new character to speak to me and see what she's saying. So hopefully a little bit of scribbling for the new project will happen today.
Well, is there anything else you would like to talk about? Or I think that was a pretty, you gave amazing answers. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all. Your questions were great. They ran the gamut, and this was one of my favorite interviews, not least because it's so nice and feels like such a homecoming to talk to y'all.
I'm really glad. It was really nice talking to you. Very interesting hearing it, and we will be checking out your music when it comes out.
Yay! Thank you so much. Hopefully, Seeds is going along well, and I look forward to following y'all's stories too.